Well, thanks for coming on, Chip. It's been a pleasure getting to know you for the past couple of weeks now. Um,
It's been food.
I think we met a little bit over, from Charles Ham, that podcast coming on and reached out
Yes,
and
I saw that, and I appreciated what he had to say, but I was actually inspired and impressed with you.
hmm,
I was. I mean, here's a young guy. You're in points unmentioned Wyoming,
uh,
and you know you could be doing anything in the world, and yet here you are, actually busting your tail in a daytime job, building houses, and then busting your tail of the evening and the weekends, building something not for content's sake itself and not just for business to make tons of money, but to make a difference. And I was like, yeah, that kid makes sense to me. So that's why I reached out.
well, it's been really fun to getting to know you and um, like that conversation we had last week on the phone was really cool. I've been thinking about a lot of what we had talked about on there since then, and I thought
Uh-huh.
maybe a good question to ask you would be how you distinguish character from integrity. Um,
Oh,
do you remember that us talking about that?
yeah. Just a second. Let me get my notes out.
Yeah, okay. I've been thinking about that a lot, and I'm like, I feel like I don't know, I have a little, I guess like a 2% understanding, I think, of what you said. So I thought maybe you could elaborate on what your thoughts were with that, and then yeah, we can go from there.
Well, the first thought and key point to me for myself was when I got started even thinking about it, how many people even think about the difference between character and integrity? I mean, really.
I hadn't until you mentioned it.
I mean, I've talked to CEO, CIO, COO, CF, the alphabet guys because I've run that circle a bit,
Hmm.
and I've said character is important in it. Oh yes, absolutely, character is very important, and integrity. Oh yes, 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 yes. Oh yes, integrity is very important. What's the difference? Excuse me. And anytime a man says "excuse me," that means he's fishing way down deep in the files of his brain. Oh crap, I don't have a clue. I need to come up with something. And that's okay. I do it too. But most people never thought about the difference. They're kind of like symbiotic twins to most people, and they're not. They're totally separate things, interrelated and interlocked, but they're separate. Now, ask me the next question.
Um,
What's
yeah, what's the difference? I got the cue.
You better check your notes. Um, the difference is character is the foundation. It's the ground. Remember, I put it to you in ranching or farming terms because of the general area where you are. Character is the ground that you inherit or have or buy. And no, you can't buy character, but this is an analogy. Okay, ease up. Integrity is the long term work that you put into it
Mm,
to make something of it. It's the ranch that you build on top of it. Now,
mm,
you can't build a good ranch on bad character, bad land. You can't. But a lot of people have fallow ground. They've got good character. I pay my taxes. I'm true to my wife, except sometimes I look at the secretary or whatever. But and they go on and on and on about their character, but their integrity, no,
mm,
they don't have the moral courage. That's what character and integrity, what unlocks moral courage. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do today, tomorrow, 7 years down the road. And if God gives me the grace, 30 years from now, I'm going to keep my word. That's integrity. That's the long build on this foundation of character.
mm,
A lot of people have good character simply because it's never been tested.
mm. Yeah,
And
it may look strong, but it might not have anything behind it.
so that's where my own personal um, quest for understanding of that came from. And why in the world would anybody do that? Why would anybody think of that? I'm glad you asked, because my character was worthless. When I was a young man, my character was worthless. Oh, I had a great reputation because I was sincere. See, I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. I told you in the pre-recorded conversation that I left home when I was 13 and I wound up homeless on the streets. And I wanted to be accepted. So what did I do? Chip, we need help next Thursday putting this couch. I'll be there. Chip, I'll be there. Chip, I'll be there. I would overcommit more in 20 minutes, Tom, more than two good men could do in 3 weeks, and hardly ever came through on any of it. Mm-hmm. And when I was confronted, when I was caught in the open, my cat had puppies. My car broke down. I come up with whatever lie. Yeah. I was the most dangerous kind because I was sincere. I meant to do it. I intended to do it, but I never committed. And I needed to make a difference. I needed to make a change. So that's where that quest came from, on character and integrity, among other things. What next?
Well, I really liked the phrase you just said on the pre-recording of your word being a bond. I think that's a really good way of thinking of it. Like, you know, if you say something, people can count that it'll come through. You know, there's a call option on your word. You know, it's like it'll be there when they most need it.
Uh-huh.
And that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately is like understanding how to speak the truth and the best of your ability. And I think a lot of that like really comes down to it just starting out with saying what you know is true, saying what you don't know is what you don't know. And then that is your starting ground and then you can work from there, but just giving people the honest truth of yeah, I'm not the greatest, but I'll try. And you can count on me trying, but we'll see if I can come through in the end. See if I try hard enough. But
no, no. Sorry, young man. No, no. You do it. Period. Now, will it be world class? Will it be world record breaking the first time? Probably not.
Yeah.
But you will do it. That will make a difference to everybody else that has been pulling their hair out, looking for somebody that won't just try, won't just say, they'll do it. And even if it turns out not being flawless, they'll say, you know what? We can work with that.
Yeah.
Since, did you go through any of the stuff in my profile?
A little
i.e.
bit.
some letters of recommendation and stuff?
A little bit.
Did you notice how many times my word was brought up? Since I've 30-ish, okay. By God's rich grace, my word has been absolute gold. Never. Well, that's arrogant as hell. No, it's true. And I'm not the reason for it. He is. Now ask me how I learned to keep my word.
What was the catalyst?
The catalyst? The catalyst is when I spent all those years up until I was 25 not keeping my word at all. And actually running from the shame and then being confronted by the shame because I almost killed two good friends simply by not keeping a promise. And instead of hating me, they had the moral courage and love for me as a person. Took them about 2 weeks. They were mad, and I don't blame them. And they came to me and they said, look, we love you. You've got to change. We can't do this anymore. And I was still so gutless. I cussed them out and said, to hell with you. I don't need you in my life, blah, 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 blah. And over the next 2 years, I crawled, cried, and worked and learned to be the type of man that they deserved all along as a friend. And then it made me the beginnings of the man that I always wanted to be anyway.
Mm.
Double win.
Yeah.
Yes, I was able to go back and repent, and they forgave me fully and that stuff. But the catalyst was that. Now, how do you keep your word? Yes,
That's a really good question. Yeah. How do you?
you don't give it very often.
Oh,
You think everything. Hey, Chip, I really need your help next Thursday moving a couch. Brother, I can't. I just remembered I'm going to be, da 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 da, whatever. Oh, that's okay. See, nobody gets mad when you're honest.
yeah, it's true.
Boom. Nobody that's worth a flip.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're not going to do whatever it takes to help me. Okay. All right. I know which category you go in. You think it through, and you don't think it through to keep from doing something. You really want to.
Hmm.
You think it through to be honest with them. Now, there's been a ton of times that I've said, I don't know of anything right now. I will try. And that is not the old me saying, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to pat you on the head so that you feel good about me. And then walk away saying, oh, he's a good old boy. And then never do it, never have any intention. No, that's not what I mean. That means in my heart, in my mind, I'm going to try. And 95% of the time, I do it. But I can't give you my word because I don't quite know.
Yeah. Just being
And as
honest.
scary as all get out, when you get into business situations, I understand that. And I don't know why that thing's beeping, but so be it. Um, well, if I'm dead honest with them and they say you can have my business at $4.2 million, well, you know full well that you've got to have 5.3, not for greedy profit, because you know how much it's going to cost for the rock, for the trucks, for the insurance, the COIs, certificate of insurance, and all that kind of stuff for that big a job, and still be able to pay your men the good wages that you want to give them and you're going to give them. And you
Hmm.
say, no, I can't do it for that. What? So and so will do it for 3 million. I am proud for so and so.
Yep.
Could you do it for 4.9? No, no. I can do it for 5.2. Okay. What just happened there? Honest business.
Yeah.
Scary, honest, good business. Well, this guy doesn't understand business. I understand the kind of business that the people that might be saying that do, and I don't want to be part of
Hmm.
it. I like it straight up.
Yeah.
What next?
Um, do you think, have you thought much on the idea of identity? Like, are you familiar with that term of like understanding who you are as like
Go
uh trying to figure out
ahead.
how to describe this, right? But there's been a lot in the I guess the personal development world of like choosing the kind of person you want to become and then, repeatedly trying to do those actions to become that person. So like you have this idea of who you want to be as an identity and you continually do that. I mean, I think it's a more modern way of saying how do you build your character? Um, but I was just curious if you've found like I feel like there's usually two or three things that if you really work on those things, everything else kind of goes where it should be. And I think keeping your word is probably number one. I didn't know if there's like a second or third degree thing you should be doing in order to
Sure,
build that identity.
sure, there is. Keeping your word is crucial. It's critical.
Hmm.
And by the way, my identity, I know exactly who I am. I don't think you've met too many people that knew more about who they were than I do. I mean, I know how worthless I've been. I know how dangerously easy it would be for me to be that worthless again.
Hmm.
I mean, people talk about that freely, but I also know whose I am, and
Hmm.
that's made a difference. It really has, really has. All right. What are the other critical things for your identity of who you want to be? For me, honesty, that's keeping your word.
Hmm.
All right. That's the basics of keeping your word. But it's more than that. Honesty is being honest with yourself. Remember, I told you a few minutes ago that I was so gutless I wouldn't even face myself.
Hmm.
First person I ran from every day was me, because in my little 2 o'clock in the morning self, I knew I didn't want to, and I didn't want to face it, and I didn't know how to fix it, and I was terrified of even. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How to fix it, I think, is the scariest part.
What's that?
I think trying to figure out how to fix it is the scariest
Oh,
part.
yeah, no,
No?
not for me.
Okay.
It was actually doing it. I knew how to whip the
Oh.
dragon. I saw the scale that was missing from his chest area. I just didn't want to get close enough to them fangs and that fire to put the
Mm.
spear.
Hmm.
So, because my dragon was my knowledge of what I didn't bring to the table yet. No idea how to do
Mm.
it. I mean, I was 13, then I was 17, then I was 21, then I was 25. Then I had a college degree, and I had this, and I had that. I was married, and I didn't have a damn clue. And everybody else around me seemed so well put together. They weren't, not at all.
Mm.
They had different masks, but I had to face the dragon, and I did finally. And the very second I started to face that dragon, i.e., my own cluelessness and what do I do about it, I found that there were people, i.e., mentors. There was our king. And I'm not talking about voices saying, I am with you at all times. No, that's in his word. I don't have to hear that voice. And I didn't have feathers from angels' wings dusting me or anything either. I knew. I knew inside of here that every time I took a step in courage, whether I faltered, fell down, slipped, or whatever, I was at least moving in the right direction. And the God who made me to be better than I'd ever been before said, now you're getting the idea. Now, there were a lot of times I said, I could use a little more help down here. And it didn't seem forthcoming. But it's just like building a house, whether you're building track houses or whatever, from start to finish, from the first scoop of ground to handing the keys off. What's the average time frame for you and your crews?
Mm. Well, it's usually about a year from start to
Yeah.
finish. Yeah.
And yet the homeowner wants it when?
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Homeowner, for my self improvement, for my identity, I wanted it now. That's not how it works. Now, can they throw houses up in 2 days? Absolutely. There's a company in Pennsylvania that builds them. They build them in what sections or whatever. All right. Then they take them apart and they truck them all out to you and they put them back up. And you can have a house in 2 days at 3 times the cost. You can't do that with character. You can't do that with your identity.
Mhm.
One, keep your word. Two, be honest. Three, be kind.
Mm.
Kind with yourself. Be kind with other people as you find them struggling and straining and trying, or sitting there at the starting gate, scared to death to even start the first step, just like I was for so long. Be kind. That gives more strength. That gives more identity than the identity that I was looking for.
Mm.
Because in those moments of being kind, I'm more like what I begged for, what I hoped for, what I was so curious about not receiving all those years when I had nothing. I
Mm.
just need to be kind, like Paul Bergman, like that sheriff, Cheryl, like a few others that I won't name at the moment. Not because I'm ashamed or it's a secret. It's not.
Right.
So being kind with yourself and with other people, that for me was the bonding agent. Okay. Because I had tons of examples of being honest, keep your word at all costs. Nearly every person ever told me, you ain't worth a damn. You don't keep your word. Guess what? They didn't either. They cheated on their wife. They cheated on their taxes. They cheated on their business partners. They were human beings, okay? Just basic human beings. But in the early days, I was terrified of them. That's what a real man is. He always keeps his word and he's mad at everybody that doesn't. No, no, that's not how it works. That's not how, thank God, that's not how it works.
Hmm.
Keep your word, be honest, be kind. You put those three together, along with hunger and passion, uh, down south of the border, they have a word called ganas. Okay. Do you know what ganas is?
No.
It's a bone deep burning desire. Now, until you have a bone deep burning desire for whatever identity it is that you're after, you don't really want it that bad. That's just the truth of it. And nobody can manufacture it for you. It'll be like Saul's armor on David when he went to go beat the crap out of Goliath. David had the heart and he had a clue of how to do it. But to Saul, who was a professional soldier, you can't go out there in shepherd's clothing, toga or whatever. I don't even know. I don't need that visual. But anyway, my point is, so he said, well, here, take my armor. One, Saul was a lot bigger guy than him. How do you know? Because it didn't fit. But two, even if he'd had armor that fit real good, it wouldn't have worked for hitting him with that rock out of that sling. Dress appropriately for what you got going. And I'm talking about in your mind as well. I didn't for a long time. I thought I had to do it this way. And I'm not any good at that way. But I am good at this way. Just being me, just being real. And I've learned the most and gotten the most out of those that were that with me. They didn't wear their Sunday morning suit and their Monday morning business acumen to talk to me. I said, hey, boy, what's going on with you? What do you mean? Something ain't right. Let's talk. That's,
Yeah, it
to me, it
is.
was. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Oh, a lot of sense. I've had similar experiences.
Yeah.
I kind of wish sometimes people would tell me more though, like when I'm messing up, like, hey, you messed that up. This is why it bothered me. This is what you should do. But then I think about that and I'm like, well, actually, I know what I did and I know what I messed up on. They don't need to tell me. Like, if I actually took a deep reflection, I know what I did wrong. But,
You bring a lot to the table then, because most people don't even want to think about that. So you're doing good.
well, it gets depressing. I mean,
Huh?
like,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
does going to the gum gym 2 hours every day.
yeah.
Huh? Especially
Hmm.
leg day.
Hmm.
I mean, I work with guys that, I mean, they look like Charles Atlas and Adonis up top. Little bitty chicken legs.
Yeah.
They just don't do leg day.
No.
Well, chicken don't care about my legs. They just want that big hairy chest and broad shoulders. Yeah, okay, chicken leg, whatever.
Yeah.
So there's always something depressing or not fun about the really phenomenal things that we have to do
Mm.
for me.
Do you think that, in Genesis, after
Oh,
Adam fell, um,
here we go.
well, it's related to work.
Oh,
When when God says, "Now all of your work will become toil," you know, like things will not happen the way you want them to happen.
yeah, you will earn your daily bread by the sweat of your brow, and the ground will fight against you, basically. What about it?
Well, I've wondered about that because it's so easy, I think. Well, I think everyone struggles with it when it seems like you work and work and work, and then there's no real benefit that you see in the present moment. And then you start wondering, well, am I doing the right work? Because I still want to work. Am I doing the right thing? Do I need to change or need to stop it altogether? And I think that's the clutch point for most people is like they're doing work, they don't see a benefit, they think, oh, it's not getting me anywhere, I should do something else. And they always switch. What do
Hmm.
you think is the metric to know you're doing the right work?
Stop worrying about data and metrics, number one.
Mm,
Companies and individuals that make metrics and data their golden child, it's what they're after. We need more metrics. We'll either create the metrics, in other words, fudge the numbers to get the metrics they want. And that's good or bad. Oh, we're doing terrible, blah, blah, blah. Metrics and data are natural outcomes, just like happiness. If you chase happiness, you get 2 hours, 3 hour stints of it at the bar, maybe on Friday night, and then you pay for it all the rest of the next week, and sometimes the rest of your life, if you
mm,
got drunk enough, bad enough mistake. So metrics, I never think about metrics, which drives some of the people I've worked with absolutely crazy. And yet, by God's grace, I've got almost 3 million collected man hours directly under my watch as a safety director consultant. Not a single recordable injury. How do you do that without thinking about metrics? Because I think about the men and women that
mm,
okay. Now, to come back to your thing about, how do you know you're doing the right thing for work or whatever? Hmm. I'm a safety consultant right now. All
mhm.
right. I'm helping to run a job for the Corps of Engineers. Love every minute of it. I'm out here in Trinidad, Colorado, suffering like crazy. This terrible, ugly. That's a lie, by the way. I owned my own company for years. I did marketing and I did training, and I had clients like Cracker Barrel, Motorola, Toyota, Ebb-Tide Boats, Burris Optics, Horizon Yachts, Bear Paints, blah, 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 blah. How come you don't still do that? I made tons of money and worked from home. And then April 10th, 2008, it all came to a screeching halt because the economy crashed. All right. And I've been in the housing industry, Bear Paints, Kills Primer, Master Film, Masco Coatings, Delta Faucets, Chrome Craft Wrap. You get the idea. Housing stuff. It all died, and they didn't need a consultant anymore. So I went back to my roots after 3 years of searching for work like crazy, because when you're considered one of the best in the world, what you do, like marketing, training, leadership, crisis management, change, all the key things, why not keep knocking on that door? But when they came back and the economy was good, they didn't need the best in the world. They needed pretty faces, nice figures, and yes, sir. And I've got a gorgeous face, and my figure's not that bad, but I look terrible in a skirt, and I don't say yes, sir, that easy. So they just said, no, thank you. What are you laughing at? No, but honestly, I wound up back doing what I swore I'd never do. I wound up back in the world
Mm.
every minute. So how did I know I was doing the right work? Because there was no other work for me to do.
Mm.
But I put all of the ganas, that bone deep burning desire. And what is my identity? To be one of the best in the world at whatever I do. If it's
Mhm.
this photography, if it's my writing, and not for ego's sake, but why do it if you're not going to work at being one of the best?
Yeah.
All right. So I walked in and I'm in a refinery again, wearing a hard hat and FR, flame retardant, clothing and that kind of stuff, and steel toe boots. And I'm like, ah, crap. You know, there were no private jets. I wasn't flying first class, although I did have a pretty nice truck. You know. So what do? I give those people the exact same quality of service and level of commitment every single minute of every single day that I'm there that I gave to the boardrooms at Bear Paints and Ebb-Tide Boats and Toyota. And you want to know something? It took me about 4 days to stop cussing God and saying, oh, hell of a nice thing you've done for me here. I said I needed work and you put me back in this crap. I wound back with the most real people
Mm.
Because in the white collar world, there's some mighty fine people, but in the white collar world, oh, Mr. Green, you're so good. No, you're not, you lying devil. I heard you bitching about me over there at the water thing. Don't stand there and do that. Don't do that. In the refineries, hey, dude, I didn't like what you said. They had no problem letting you know exactly where you stand every minute of the day. I like it. I'm good with that. We can fight, we can talk it through, or you can just go to work mad. I don't care. Let's, whatever.
Mm.
So, how do you know? What's the metric? The metric is what you have.
Mm.
And if you're giving 100% at Walmart, at McDonald's, at Burger King, my dad, I grew up in a body shop. I told you that.
Yeah.
Dirty, loud, plastic dust, paint dust, rust, blah, 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 dirt all over the place. Cool cars, though. My dad was awesome at that. But when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, he would need a break from the shop. So he would go to Oklahoma City, 65 miles away, to get parts. And he did. He got parts, but he also went out to eat and went to the mall. And it was my job as a 9, 10-year old entrepreneurial kid to watch the shop. What the hell's a 9-year old going to do in a body shop? Well, basically, I had a binder, a spiral notebook, and a pen. And Mr. Hargrove came, and his 68 Plymouth Belvedere has a crushed back left quarter panel, and blah, 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 blah. His phone number is blah, blah, blah. Mrs. Stewart came by, and she's having trouble with the alignment, blah, 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 blah. I was good at that.
Mm.
I was good. I was especially good at that because he had a old Frigidaire refrigerator, the old round kind from the 50s, loaded with Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, RC, Pepsi Cola. And I could drink as many as I wanted. Yep, it was a good job. And I got paid $1 when I got back. And in 1969, kid, $1. Well, that was 10 candy bars. That was, you see what I'm saying? I was rich,
Yeah. Yeah.
rich. He only had one requirement, Tom: sweep the floor and clean the shop while I'm gone. Okay. So I'd take the broom, I'd sweep around whatever cars he had in there and around, whatever thinner cans and paint cans and frame machines. I'd sweep around them and I'd make a pile and I'd get the scoop shovel and okay, I cleaned it. And that was it. He would come back and he'd go, shit. That's all he'd say. And he'd start pulling things away from the wall and moving the frame machine and sweep all the dirt that I had missed and get a bigger pile, literally every time. And then he would look at me and he would say, son, if you could ever learn to clean a shop, you could run a country. And I thought, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. Never said it. Never said it. No, that would not have been healthy. That's stupid. You know what my dad was trying to tell me? You've got to have purpose and ganas about everything that you do, no matter how mundane or seemingly unimportant it is. Because if you don't care about being world class at everything you do, you will never be world class for very long at anything you do. And that's the metric, Tom,
Mm.
for me. That's the metric.
I really
How do
like
you know when
that.
it's time to go? If you've given absolutely everything you have every single day, learned what you didn't know, did great work, and you knew it, not out of ego's sake, not out of arrogance, but because other people are like, we've never had anybody do it the way you do. That's awesome. That's cool. And they're still like, yeah, up to standards. You know what? You can stick your standards up your schnoz. I'm going to go somewhere else. For me, that's when it's time to go.
Mm.
But at least I know my signature on the time that I was there is in gold.
Mhm.
That makes sense?
Makes a lot of sense. I was curious about that question because I listened to a he's an up and coming entrepreneur. Well, up and coming. He's been very successful, but he runs a company called acquisition.com, so he helps scale companies. His name's
Yeah,
Alex Hormozy.
Okay.
Pretty buff guy, long black hair. You've probably seen him somewhere
No,
online.
but he
Okay.
hadn't seen me either, so we're even.
Okay. But that's one of his things is like he talks a lot about how he doesn't care whether or not he seems like he's a hard worker to somebody else. It's always asking himself, like, did he do his best? And so I've been thinking about that a lot, and I'm like, I really like that thought he had, and since I heard, I'm trying to been doing. I've attempted to give more of myself in whatever I do, but I've noticed like I always have that stopping point of like, oh, it's not worth it, like let's say like you're just like you mentioned leg day at the gym. Leg
Okay.
day at the gym is never fun, and you should probably do your full set of reps. But it's really easy to talk yourself out that like, oh, my hip's not feeling just right, or I'm gonna feel tired later if I don't give it all. Or these little things you tell yourself to not give your full effort in the moment. And really you're just stealing from yourself, I think.
You are.
Because yeah,
That's wisdom beyond your years. You absolutely are.
because it's
All right,
like go ahead,
go.
sorry. I was
No,
just
go.
thinking about like um I've been thinking about this for a little bit because the way it seems like God made us is that if he gave us everything and then he asks us, will you give it back? If you do, I will give you more than you can ever think. But he wants us to, I think he's asking us, are we actually like him? Are we a first giver? Like he gives
Mhm.
without anything of like one in return. And he's hoping that we'll be like him in doing that as well. And if we are, then we're his friends. And I've noticed like all the times in my life I've been most upset with myself is when I didn't give my full effort in something.
Yes, sir.
And so I think it really hit me the other day when I was listening to Alex and he was like, yeah, Alex was saying this that he worked at a lawyer firm for a few years, I think. And um, he was in there working on something and I guess his boss was a French lady. And he said the two times he ever talked to her, first time was when he got the job, and the second day was this time. And she was like, "How's your day going?" He's like, "Oh, it's just rough. I'm working really hard in here." And she just laughed and was like, "You have no idea what hard work is." And he was really
Ooh.
offended.
Oh.
He was like, who does this woman think she is, And he thought he was hot stuff. And then
Yeah.
he was like, oh, I didn't know what I was capable of. And he's so grateful she said that. And that was, that was hit me so hard because I didn't remember the last time I gave my all when I heard that.
Mm.
And I was like, that's
Love
really,
your, you're a
yeah,
heck of a young man. I love your honesty. All right, you ready?
yeah.
What you just talked about is one of the key components of ganas. All right. And you know when it's lacking, you being universal, not you person. You know when it's lacking in its depth, its purity, in other words, 100%, when that creeps in. Now, does that thought creep in? Yes, everybody, to every single person, right? I've got a dear friend that was 9 years 82nd Airborne sniper. He held the world record for halos, high altitude, low altitude. I'm sure it's been broken since then because he's an old fart. But uh, he said by the age of 29, I was an old man. He goes, even good jumps hurt when you got a 110-pound rocket. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So he didn't quit. He switched, learned completely from nothing, that dumb old East Texas boy, and said, yeah, I'm going to be a chopper pilot and a medevac. Okay. And he did. And he got to the very top of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Story I may tell some other time if you find enough value to continue having conversations. Um, but at any rate, the last time I was around him, he was just about to muster out after 24 years, CW4. CW5 is higher, but CW4 is pretty damn stout. And they brought him back to Fort Wainwright in North Pole, Alaska, to train young pilots because at that point in time in 2006, 7, yeah, 6 and 7, they were running out of qualified pilots in country. You can have all the training in the world, but if you don't have experience, you can get yourself and your crew killed. So he was training them. So I got to meet Colonel Ray Alford. All right. And you're like, who's Colonel Ray? Colonel Ray Alford was Captain Ray Alford in the first Gulf War and had the highest personal kill count of any soldier in history.
Hmm.
Bad dude. He's my height, but this much broader and this much thicker. Hated him. Hated him. No, he was a good man. He was very soft spoken, very easygoing, and never, I'm military and I'm a war hero. Never, never. Went fishing with him and my buddy in the Bay of Valdez in 2007. And I was listening to them talk on the boat about how that they were going on a run and it was the last one for this group of cadet or not cadets, but soldiers before they mustered out in country. And they're all, 22, 23 years old and just full of fish and vinegar and in great shape. He goes, dude, I'm 50 whatever years old. Okay, I'm in good military condition, but I'm 50 some odd years old. And we'd already run more than we ever did. And all the guys are all burned out. All them young, yeah, we got this. And all of a sudden, I looked at my master sergeant and we smiled and we said, oh, this is going to suck. One more time around, gentlemen. He goes, I regretted it the second step after I said it. But you know what? We did it. That's got us.
Hmm. Yeah.
Stupid. What that is. But
Yeah.
all right. So I work in an industry where when you're in management, like by God's grace I am, if you do it right, you're there 100 hours a week because we work 7 13s. But to do it right, you have to get there about an hour, hour and a half early. Why? Because I want to see the crews that are coming in from the other shift. How tired are they? How dirty are they? How upset are they? How love, we got this. Okay, my crew that's working on that, they ain't got a thing to worry about tonight because those guys already got it taken care of. But if they're coming in and they're throwing down wrenches and this son of a, I need to go watch them guys because something's not good. You see what I'm saying? And you
Yeah.
don't get that on your rollover, as we call it, with the daytime or the nighttime, the other shift leader. How did things go? Oh, absolutely marvelous. We walked on water and I flew over everybody. Lying bastard, you never got out of the dadgum office. So you get used to working 100 hours a week, 8 to 10 months a year. You just get in the groove.
Hmm.
All right. And then I get around somebody and I understand, I really do. But one, they're home every night. They're working for an HVAC company or whatever. And you're seeing them at a restaurant or a gas station and they're all tired and sweaty. Oh, hey, Bob, how'd it go? Oh, God, I got 57 hours in this week. Well, this is killing me. And I can't help myself, Tom. I always go, I remember my first part-time job too. Oh, you ought to see their faces.
Oh, dang.
People don't know what they have in them, and they don't know what they're capable.
Hmm.
And those that learn through mentors, I don't think you can get it from role models.
Hmm.
Role models don't have to be there with you, sweating and throwing up and everything else. Mentors sometimes do. But if my mentor's out there and it's raining and it's cold and it's 85 hours into a 100-hour week and he's still going, good job, gentlemen. Only 2 more shifts to go. But you know what? Everybody's back straightens up. Everybody's shoulders come back because we're the best damn crew out here because our boss is out here. Everybody else's boss is in the trailer. I'd rather be a part of that crew. How about you?
Yeah. Always.
And that's where I learned to be in that regard, what I learned to be.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, like thinking about like really what it means to give your all into something. And uh I think that's what like you always watch for in movies is when stories are told of like I don't know, you talk like Hacksaw Ridge, or Lone Survivor. Usually it's a lot of war movies. It's like when they had to give it
Or the
all.
trilogy of the Ring, or Star
Yeah,
Wars.
yeah,
They're all based on that. I
yeah,
can't go another step. Well, we got another 40 minutes of movie. We got a lot more to do, you
yeah.
know.
Exactly. Um,
And is it fun? No. Is it doable by yourself? Yes. Over and over and over again? Yes. Is it always done? No. No. We need each other.
mhm.
It's a wonderful thing to realize that.
Yeah.
The next hard part comes in finding other people that understand and know the same thing and are like, we get it. We're here with you. And then you say, I'm here with you when it's their time. But that's the difference between what they call teams, i.e., special forces groups and that kind of stuff, and so many others. And what are you
Mhm.
talking about? What I'm talking about is even after they get out, they still in. I'm not talking about in the nightmares and that kind of stuff. That's individuals. That's up to them. But I'm talking about I gave my word 16 years ago to have your six. And until the last breath leaves my body, that's where it's going to stay.
Mhm.
You've got even two or three people like that. Watch out, world. Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, so we all got to be special forces? No, no, no. There are farmers that do that, ranchers that do that, house builders that do that, husbands and wives that do that. It's part of that character and integrity thing. It's not
Mhm.
special in the military
Yeah.
because there's a lot of guys come out of forces and they can't wait to take that uniform off and never think about it, never put it on, and never really go whole hog again. They've done enough, which no judgment whatsoever. I've done that in other venues and other times, but you were talking about giving your all, and it's not enough. Giving your all is always enough if you give it to the last bit.
Mm.
Let me give you a quick story. You don't ever give quick stories. I know, but it's part of the fun of being me. You even do your own interview. You're even talking to yourself. Yeah, I know. I do it a lot. I have been more inspired by the stories of people that lived a long time ago that seem to lose than almost anything else, Tom.
Mm.
If you research the Covenanters, okay, in what is currently Scotland, England, I don't even remember what age. I don't remember if it was the 900s, the 1200s. I don't know. But they were called the Covenanters. Now, would I have agreed with everything that they biblically thought? Probably not. But I agree with this. They were hounded, they were hunted, and they were killed by the scores of hundreds.
Mm.
Men, women, children, they didn't care. They wanted them gone. Why? Because they had guns right down to the very last soul. And the king couldn't scare them, and the pope couldn't scare them into turning their back on what they knew right, to the best of what they knew at the moment. And one particular story, it gets me now. They came into a village and they told them, if you renounce this crap, we'll let you live. And to a man, to a woman, and to a little girl, they stepped forward and says, we will never back off of what we know about it. Then you will die. And they had these pier stobs out in the water. I want to say it was Northeast Scotland, but don't call that gospel because it's been a lot of years since I've actually read the story. But it's visually in my mind, just like it just happened. And so they waited until low tide. That's what evil does. It wants to get the most deliciousness out of the hurt they can cause that they can. And they did the men first and made the women and children stand there and watch as the tide came up. And to a man, they praised God and said goodbye as the water came up. When the tide went out, they cut them loose, dumped them to the side, and they brought more in. And the part of the story that really got to me was this older lady and this little, I think she was like 8 or 9 year old. As they, strapped him in and all of that, the little girl kept looking at the old lady. The old lady looked at him and smiled. It's okay. It's okay. And as the water came up to the ankles, it's okay. Knees, it's okay. Of course, the knees on a 9 year old are a lot shorter than the knees on a lady. And the lady actually hunched herself down, worked the ropes until she. The water got up to here. And the little girl goes, I'm sorry, but I'm scared. And she goes, there's nothing to be sorry about, baby. I'm scared too. But in a minute, we're going to be victorious. Guns, they gave it all. And they were wrong. They lost. No, Tom, because hundreds of years later, I'm telling you on a podcast about the victory of that kind of mindset, that kind of courage, and that kind of character. I want to be that kind of winner.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that kind of suffering. Dead honest. But if it is required of me, I pray that I have half of the courage that that little girl had. I'll be a winner. That's how I'm. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the same.
Next question, or are we out of time?
No, I could probably go for another hour if that sounds good with you.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Um,
Get any value out of this? I mean, is it making
oh
sense?
yeah, I this has been really good. I really appreciate it. I hope I'm asking good questions, but
Don't worry about that. Whatever comes from your soul and the depths of what you really want to know, that's going to be the good stuff. And you may come across one that I say it's none of your damn business, but we haven't gotten there yet. Go ahead.
um,
You've never had a guest like me, have you?
no, it's been really fun. Uh,
Go ahead.
well,
By the way, folks, I wrote a book.
oh yeah, we'll put that in the
Question.
bio. Um,
I'm just being goofy. Go ahead.
uh, so have you I'd imagine you've probably read a lot of history, right?
A bit.
A bit. I guess it's
Mediocre
kind of,
student. When I was a mediocre student when grades were on the line. Dumb, dumb, dumb. But since then, yeah. As a matter of fact, hold on, well, I'm not going to because that thing will lose track. But I was going to bring them over. 1776 by David McCullough. Good. Whoop, don't turn off. Good book. William J. Bennett, The Book of Virtues. Good book. Uh, American History Since the Civil War, Volume 2, which is a compilation of writings and stuff about all kinds of different things. Yeah, I've read a lot of history. And the reason I got started on it was I kept hearing that little truism: those who do not learn from history are bound to repeat it. And I thought, well, I don't want to repeat history because I've already made a mess of mine, so I don't want to repeat it. That's daggum sure.
mm-hmm.
But then I found the rest of that quote, which I think somebody penciled in many years after it, but it makes perfect sense. And those that do learn from it are bound to watch the idiots that didn't put them all through it again. And that's kind of where we are at the moment. That's just the way it is. But that's why in every age, so many people. Do you know how many times it's been the end of the world, Tom?
Hmm. Probably countless times by now.
Well, yeah, but there's been 7 major times where all of the experts, it's in the world. See, I've calculated this. Shut up. Just shut up. Right before the general Titus, not the Titus, the good Titus in the Bible, but the evil Roman general Titus in AD 70, surrounded Jerusalem and did exactly what Jesus said was going to happen:
Hmm.
obliterate. Not a stone left on top of another stone. There were a lot of people saying this. When Caligula started doing what he did, a lot of people said this is the end of the world. Nero, the end of the world. Move your way up, the Dark Ages, end of the world. The Black Death, bubonic plague, 3 times in the last 2 millennia. Each time, end of the world. World War One, end of the world. World War Two, end of the world. Right now, end of the world. Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, we
Does
don't
it
know.
matter? It doesn't. What do you mean it doesn't matter? We've got to get ready for the end times. You got to get ready for your end time regardless, idiot.
Yeah.
You never know
No.
when it's going to be. I was supposed to be dead 4.5 years ago from stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. They said, you waited too long. You're ate up with it. You're done. Now, we might be able to buy you some time and a boat and an island and some more retirement funds if you let us gut you like a fish and pump you full of chemo and radiation and hormone therapy. Look how good they were wrong. Now, they gutted me like a fish, but I didn't go through any of the rest of it. I found a protocol online that actually did the job without killing my immune system. And by God's grace, 4.5 years later, I am 100% cancer free. And I feel like I'm 50, 51 years old instead of 65.
Wow.
But when they told me that, and all of the experts were so sure, you know what went through my mind? This is where you say, what went through?
Oh, yeah. How did it go? Sorry, I was so
Uh,
intent. I was like, oh, wait, it's my cue.
all right, Lord, if this is how and when you want it to happen, at least utilize me to accomplish whatever you might have left.
Mm.
And that's not to say how great I am, once again, but when you aim yourself at something bigger than yourself, and for me it's the Lord Jesus Christ, 100%,
Hmm.
then you have that purpose and you have that identity and you have that integrity. So you have nothing to fear. Period. So you're saying you've never been afraid since then? Yeah, yeah, I have been. And mad at God, but not for that. You know why I get mad at God?
Why?
When he don't do what I want when I want because I've done what he. And he's like, we never made that deal. I never signed on that at all. You know what I did sign on before you ever came on board, Mr. Chip Green? I signed on to have my only begotten son live and die and raise again so that your little worthless hind could be mine for good, for goodness sake, forever. Now, where do you want to go from there? Never mind. I'm good.
I'll take
You
back
know
that statement. Yeah. That's so
can we
true.
just act like I did never say that? But see, that's another thing about God. You can be honest with him. That's what he wants. You know,
Reminds me of,
church folk that, oh, I've never been mad at God. Well, then you've never been close to him. How
mm,
dare you? Easy. Because I've been mad at everybody I got close to. I get mad at myself. I'm close with me. I like me. But you see what I'm saying? You ever get mad at your dad, your mom, whatever? Yeah, you do. And he's not surprised by that. And he's not even bothered by that. As long as you don't stay that.
mhm. Reminds me of there's
And you
this.
were talking about history, by the way, if you want to go back to that.
Oh yeah.
But that is part of my history, and that's part of the history that I've read. And that's why I am at this moment what I am, the way that I am, is by his grace.
Mm,
Any good that comes out of me is because I've read his history, and I've read the history of others that followed him in their history, i.e., the Covenanters,
mm, yeah.
the Voice of the Martyrs. You ever heard of them?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Voice of the Martyrs. Check that out. Um, Richard Wimbra, forgive me, brother, I can't remember your name. Anyway, suffered horribly for his faith for many, many years and never gave up. Him and his wife both. But they started the Voice of the Martyrs. And what they did was they went back through history, all of the people that stood firm. They gave their all to the very last breath and told their stories. And it's Fox's Book of Martyrs is what they utilize, and I think it's Fox with two X's. It's a gentleman's name, and it's all documented all the way back to the first century.
Wow.
And there was a time where I thought, well, that's not important because I didn't really feel like being quote unquote religious. God was like, good, I can't stand that stuff anyway, but you need to know some things. And when I started reading that history, that stiffened my spine and humbled me. And that's another good thing. If you are the best, I've got a friend, I'll just call him JT, known him for years. He's one of the best natural leaders, Tom, that I've ever seen in my life.
Mm,
I'm damn good at it. He's naturally good at it. He's from Louisiana, and he goes, Chip, if I'm the smartest man in the room, it's time to change.
mm.
If you're the strongest, best looking, whatever dude in your gym, it's time to find a gym because you're going to run out of inspiration, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same way with history. Keep reading about people that did things that you don't think could even be possible.
Yeah.
Lewis and Clark, their expedition that took 2.5 years, and they only lost one person, and that was to illness, not to Indians, not to bears, not to wolves, to illness. And all the rest of them made it back. What? I run into guys all the time, Tom. I was born 100 years too late. I should. You fat sucker. You won't even get off the damn couch to go get your own TV dinner. Shut up. You weren't born 100 years too late. You was born right on time, you microwave Mike. Anyway, but that's
Uh,
another part of history is find out how tough the people that we come from were.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Reminds
mean, what's your background? Ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
Don't
So
say white guy.
I'm a quarter Irish, a quarter German, a quarter Russian, and then a mishmash of the rest.
Okay.
Um,
A quarter of the Irish. The Irish were the most scorned human beings on earth in America.
yeah.
Okay. Until the Chinese came.
Mm,
Both were the key workhorses for the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. You've heard the term a Chinaman's chance in hell.
I
You're
haven't,
too young.
no.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah, it was very common right until this generation, I guess. The origin of that was what they would do is when they had to blast things off the side of a cliff, a mountain, or whatever, they would put a person from China in the little chair with the dynamite and they'd stuff it in the hole. And sometimes the fuse wasn't long enough and they would get killed in the explosion because they didn't get them pulled up in time. And they'd say, bring me another one. They didn't care. And
Um,
the Irish were the same way. They worked them literally to death. Literally to death. My point in all of that is to be that tough and still not only survive, but thrive in this country, you come from tough stock.
Yeah, it's crazy learning the history of the Irish. Like, I think there might have been more Irish slaves than there were black slaves in America.
There were. Now they called them indentured servants. Same thing. You couldn't go anywhere. You never got your freedom back. They'd always find something that you did 2 years onto it,
Yeah.
right? So let me get rid of this call. Anyway, and I'm not going to get into the whole races. Oh, this one's more. It's human nature. It's the human race. When one single human being is being treated less than humanely, that is wrong,
Yep.
regardless of how much God given tan they do or don't have.
Just melanin. That's all it is.
So, I don't remember where I was going to go with that because I got rid of that call. But we all come from tough stuff in the past because we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And black, brown, green, red, yellow, or blue, if you're here more than 2 generations, somebody in your family went through some rough times to make sure that the next generation had it a little bit better. That's good stuff. That's good stock. And that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, my that's interesting. So my both of my sides of my family, I found as getting older were pretty influential. So my mom's side is Gallagher, so Irish Gallaghers, and they find out that they're actually like royalty back in the day. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but my grandpa was a patent lawyer, and he patented the first skid steer loader. He also patented the aerosol can, and I was like, wow. I know. I was like, and
That's
I
pretty cool.
it was really cool. I was like, Grandpa, what? Whoa! Like, he died when I was 4, so I wish I would have been able to know him better. But, um, yeah, like he's one of those people that worked. I think he worked his day job and then studied at nighttime to become a lawyer in Chicago. Um, on my dad's side, uh, you know the Morton Salt.
I did.
So that family, there were 4 brothers, and each one of them went into a different industry. One was salt, and I guess his family, he made an arboretum back home in Illinois, and my grandpa was the main landscape architect there, so he like put it all together. But my,
Convenience.
I know, pretty cool. But that was something like both I would see in my mom and dad too, was like they never questioned whether or not they had a lot of work to do. It's just like, how do we get it all done? I think
Yep.
it comes from that old stock of just like, oh yeah, this is a job. We need to get it done. It's going to be rough and hard and it'll be hot and sweaty and everything else, but it's worth doing. And when you're done, you get a good meal at home and you get to go to bed. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I guess I bring those things up because it's like I guess it's to me it's a closer model of someone that did a really good job on something, but never talked about the job they did, but then had the ability to give the value they learned through those lessons of work to their children without even talking about the work they did. It's just like I guess, yeah, like their integrity through their characters, what they shared.
There it is. That's that long haul that I talked about of integrity.
Yeah.
And that's what they passed on. The character was already there, but they
Hmm.
passed on integrity, to staying at it for the long haul, to build something.
Yeah. And it's really cool because um I was listening to I forget which talk it was, but um, just talking about, I think, was it when you look at a skyscraper,
Okay.
people, if you take a skyscraper and you look at it after a year, all that's there is some pipes in the ground and some concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the 9 years is them actually building up on that. But it's like, if it wasn't for that foundation, you would not see anything else that's glamorous. So it's always like that dirty work that no one sees, no one cares about. That's actually the worthwhile thing. And I think that comes to a lot of like what we were talking about with um that inner knowing of whether or not you're doing a good job. And I
Yes, sir.
really think that's like it's kind of a tangential idea, but I think that's what the thing God wants us to look at, and that's like our conscience of like, did you do it the way you know you should have? And everyone knows what they should have done. And then if you're able to do that, then that's what you're able to give to your family, and that's your legacy. That's what continues on with your children and everything. It's like, but if you don't do it in each individual life, then you can't even continue on what your parents gave you. So it's like they gave you the torch, they did all this work for you, and then it's like, will you then take it up and then carry it on?
Interesting. You should bring that up. Um, most things familially, ooh, that's a tough word for me. Let's say great grandfather starts a business, then grandfather takes it, then dad takes it. Most things like that have a 4 generation lifespan, period, over and over and over again. Just like republics last about 200 years. Okay. Um, the initial people, it's just like the ones that came over the Oregon Trail
Mm.
or any of the others, or Goodnight Loving, i.e., the 2 men that started the cattle trail up to Dodge City to the railheads. You can go a million different ways. But what drove those first people to leave Boston and Dover and Charlotte and okay, Kentucky, and head out across that dead gum prairie and into the mountains and with all of the Indian bands that just let it be known, we don't want you here. If we catch you, we're gonna kill you, we're gonna scalp you, we're gonna do everything to make you stop and not want to be here. I don't know, Edna. I think we ought to sell everything and get us a Canastota wagon, which isn't even as good as a Rambler, by the way, and head out for 2,600 miles to a future that I don't even know what it's going to be, but just stay with me here, Edna. I think it's the thing to do. You know what, Charles? I think you're right. What possessed those people? I don't know. But I do know this, that the ones that did make it, and there were a ton that didn't, there were a ton that turned back, there were a ton whose bones turned to dust out in the prairies and the mountains. But those who made it, you know what they had waiting for them? All of the building blocks and all of the tools, but none of the hotels, none of the high rises, none of the restaurants, none of the trade routes, none of the trade goods, just the raw materials to build from. And they said, fair enough, we got this. And they did. That's our kinfolk.
Mm.
Black, brown, white, yellow, they all went across. And every one of them that made it had more gamas, had more spine, had more integrity than we give them credit.
Mm.
And if we're willing, they did pass it down to us. But we got to take the raw materials and we got to take the tools. We got to put in the back break, just like you were talking about, just like they did. But we got to do it with vision. If we simply do it because this is what I grew up with, that's why familial businesses have at most 4 generations. Grandpa had a vision, or great grandpa. Grandpa was raised in it and said, this is good vision. I want to be a part of this. He runs it when great grandpa retires or dies. And then dad grows up in it and he's like, oh, crap, I don't really want to do this, but if I wind up owning it all, yeah, I'll have some money. Yeah, I'll do it. Then the 4th generation comes along and they're like, the hell with this. I don't want to do this. I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to do this. And they got 2 choices. They can either be pioneers in their own direction and put in the hard work and maybe not realize the money at the end, but build an empire of family and generations of the next, you know, entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
or they can just waste their life away with whatever severance and monthly stipend they get from daddy until they die of an overdose or fade away into nothingness.
Hmm.
But that's another story for another day. And you and I are not of that bend.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the four generations because
What?
are you familiar with the four turnings of history? Have you heard of
I
that
don't know.
term?
Never
Uh,
heard that term, but I may be familiar with the grandfather term of it, as old as I am.
yeah, when people start saying what it is, like, oh yeah, I know what that is. It's just the four generations that the four 20-year cycles that
Sure.
repeat. So it's
Yeah.
like Revolutionary War, 80 years later or so, we had the
Yeah.
Civil War. 80 years later, we had World War One, two, and now we're in the next cycle. And it's interesting. I think a few historians, I don't remember their names, they put it together and they kind of studied most of history works in this fashion. And there's always like different figure types in each rotation. And then the fourth turning is always when the unexpected heroes rise, they combat the chaos, they look for a new way to build things back into a good order, they give it
Mhm.
along, and then, the kids lose it, they didn't know how bad it was, and then it repeats and repeats.
But you said something there that's an analogy made by lazy people when it says the kids lose it. The kids don't lose it. Their parents lose it. Kids don't know what they're losing. The parents are the ones that don't
Oh,
know it. And that next generation, which is the generation that you are a part of, because we are at that point,
uh-huh.
that's where the next era of giants comes from. And they are showing up.
Yeah, they
You're
are.
one of them. All right. And there are thousands of them.
Yeah.
Oh, today's kids don't care. Today's kids are pissed because you didn't care.
Mm.
And they're
Yeah.
making a stand and saying things that you don't have the courage to say. Don't tell me the kids have given up. The kids are waiting on you to finally get off your ass, excuse me, your rear end, and speak up. Back in my day, today's your day.
Mm. Yeah.
Whether you're 23 or 85, today is your day. God spoke about that when he says, and he called another day today. In the book of Hebrews, it mentions that no less than 5 times. And yet there be another day called today. Why does he keep saying that in the book of Hebrews? Because he's trying to tell them 2,000 years ago, don't look back 2,000 years ago, to Abraham. Don't look back 1,400 years ago to David. Today's the day. Well, it's rough today. Domitian's doing this and he's throwing us to the line. Yeah, yeah. But today's the day. You've got to make a decision today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's whether it's for God, which is the most important decision anybody ever makes, or to stand up for the things that you sense are right, you feel are right, you know are right, but you don't even have a word for them yet because your parents didn't teach them to you. They sure didn't show it to you in school. But that which God made of himself and put inside you knows, no, this ain't right. No, no, there's something else. And the hunger is there and it's growing. And your generation is the giants of the coming age
That's,
for good
yeah.
and evil. What?
Oh, yeah. That's a good distinction you said.
But your generation didn't lose anything. Your parents' generation did because they didn't stand. What about you, old man? Oh, I stood and I'm still standing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, did you
Didn't,
see that
I
was that
didn't mean to blow dry your hair with all that.
no, that's good. Um, did you see that picture of it was like eight kids, eight frat boys at a campus when they were trying to like tear down and burn the flags and they were just standing around it holding it up. Did you see that?
No, no.
This was 2 months ago, 3 months ago. When
Okay.
they had all the Palestine riots on the campuses, there's these, I think it was North Carolina or one of the, I think it was a public school, and they had one their main flag in the middle of the campus, and all the Palestine kids are like trying to tear it
Oh,
down, and
yes, 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 yes.
yeah, and they were just standing up
Yeah.
there,
No, yeah. Yeah.
and it's so cool, and like they didn't think much of it in the moment. They're just like, yeah, we're not letting their flag touch the ground. This is America, and
Yeah.
they're throwing stuff and yell at them and everything, and then um like everyone was just like sharing it on the internet. They're like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then at the RNC they got invited to talk there. And then it was really neat because they all came in like their suits and everything, and they're like, wow, like, huh. It kind of feels like old 1776 again, it's all the young kids that are like, hey, we could do something.
Do you
Because if
know
you
how old? Go. I'm sorry. Go.
yeah, no, like yeah, like Alexander Hamilton was 21.
Yeah.
Uh who else? Someone was like 19.
Yep.
I think the
From
oldest.
from 17 to 23, 25. Now you had your old farts,
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, a couple of others, but a lot of the ones that those that uphold that stand for what was right. It's called the revolution, all right? And that's a handle on a teacup that somebody take and shake at you. So, yeah, they were going against the government. No, they were standing for what was right.
Yeah. Hmm.
You called it a revolution in your history books. They just called it, we ain't taking this crap no more.
Yep.
And that's
I
what's
know.
happening. And it's not a matter of being a young Republican or a young Democrat. They're a young human being that says, no, this is not right. I'm not going to stand by it. Let it go.
Hmm.
That's power.
Yeah, it really is. Like, and especially when you see the kids that are supposed to be the young popular ones that are supposed to be the next trend of worldliness. And then they're
Mm,
like, no, I'm done. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the actor Tom Holland. He did the latest Spider-Man movies and a few others. Um,
okay, no. But
he's
Russell Brand did the same thing. He,
oh yeah, man.
yeah. Go ahead. But what about Tom Holland?
Well, so Tom Holland's he's my age, 26, and so he's
Like,
was
what's next?
considered yeah, a little biased there. Uh, he he's probably the most popular actor in today's time, probably one of the top.
Yeah.
And last year, he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take a break from Hollywood. These people aren't that great. I kind of want to start a family and try something different."
Really?
He
I did
he
not
yeah, he's Spider-Man. Like he's
get
ev
it.
like everybody looks to him, and he's like, "I'm gonna take some time off," and everyone's like, "You're gonna do what?" But like someone at that status, just to say, "I'm gonna take some time off," then just told everyone else that's the young generation that's looking up to these people like this is the life they want. It's like, oh, if he's giving that up for what we've been told is not worth it, having a family, having kids, having a home, then maybe those things are more important. And I was shocked when I heard it. I was like, he gave it up. Wow.
And you will find that in every turning of the age, the four generations, as you call it. Yeah, you will always find that. And it is always the totality of it is not young people. There's some old farts in the mix every time, but the face of it and the raw animal power of its forward movement is found in youth. And it's always a shock to those in power. We gave you everything you wanted. We insulated you. We isolated you. We fed you crap. I mean, good stuff, education wise and job wise, popularity wise. You can't turn against us. Yeah, I can.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am.
Uh-huh.
It's going to cost you. No, following you the rest of my life is going to cost me and my family. So shut it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really interesting, especially like so many. Well, I follow this one guy, and he was a liberal Democrat, and he's very honest. He's like, "Look, I grew up in Washington. I was in the most liberal neighborhood. I voted Democrat my whole life, and then like 2 or 3 years ago, I just started looking at things, and I'm like, something's not adding up." And now he does like these full exposés. He just like picks a topic. He's like, okay, corruption in music. He just picks a thread and just unravels it. And he like will
Yep.
share you. He'll do like a 4 to 6 hour interview, like webinar. He's just like, this is what I found. This is who it's connected to. This is what's going on. And he's shell shocking the world. He's just like a kid with long hair, um, with some weird t-shirts, and he's not very good at camera film. And he's just like, yeah, this is what I found. And it's just people are like, this is insane. Like, but he's like, yeah, most of it's from Wikipedia. He's like, I'm not even going into the deep stuff. He's like, this is just stuff I'm finding that they're telling us. And you're just like, wow, man, have we been blind? But then that gets into like a lot of like fifth generation warfare of like propaganda and everything. But it's exciting when people are like, wait, hold on a second. I'm not buying everything they're selling to me. And it's always the thing that Christ has always been telling us the whole time. He's like, if you
Yep.
actually want to be happy, then it's living the way I did. And the way living I did was being myself, which is giving everything I have to you. That's who God is his nature. But it's scary because I think the temptation, so maybe I should give a little context. I've been thinking about why is it that when God says to love your neighbor, think of them first before yourself? And I didn't ever really understand that. And I just kept asking myself that question, like, why is it thinking of another person first is loving them? And because you can have two scenarios. You have one person who gives his life for his friend, greatest love, a person who takes his own life. That's very, very shameful. Both lost their life. Both had the choice of they're going to die, but one is honored, one is not. And
All right.
the conclusion I found so far is that when you think of another person first, you're saying, yes, I am made in the image and likeness of God. I'm not an infinite being because there's only one infinite being, but God made me to be limitless in the sense I can always do more. And so if I think of another person first, I'm giving a gift to them, and now they're better off. And now I'm better off because now I just confirmed what God said that I am made in his image. And now two bad people are better off. If I was to take someone else's thing or take my own thing, or like take someone else's life or take my own life, then that just destroyed that person or yourself, and you just said that God was a liar. Now I think it's way deeper than that, but that's what I've gotten to so far. So
Do you want my thoughts on it or not?
yeah, because I've just been thinking about it and I don't know if it's true or not, but
No, 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 no. I'm asking you an honest question. Do you want my thoughts on
yeah.
it? No, no. And I'll tell you why. Not no to all of it, but to a couple of things.
Okay.
If you look back at my posts, it may show up as 6 days ago now. I think it's going to be 5. But if you look back at my posts, I think it's 5, maybe 6. But you will find 2 posts. One of them is of a sparrow with his head down in a rainstorm, and the rain and the wind is pelting him on the corner of a railing on I guess, a back deck or something. And it says, "Where did the strong go?" I penned that several years ago during a very dark time. 5 days ago, through no one's fault and through nothing that most people would understand, but the tracks within one's own mind that run deep and long a lot of times in the long areas where most other people are never invited, never see. 5 days ago, I was in a very, very, very dark place. The other post uh, is the one right below it, and it was the impetus for me looking for it and reposting that one about Birdie was strong. I was mad at God because I was frustrated and mad at things, people, situations that are my own, with nobody to talk to. See, I'm one of the strong ones. I'm one of the ones that people come to all the time because I open my big mouth and say, hey, you need me, I'm there. And by God's grace, I keep my word. But I don't really have anybody up to when I'm like, I'm pissed, I am done, I am lost, I am confused. Wait a minute, you're the answer guy. No, 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 you can't be. No, 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 that can't be you. I don't have anybody to go to. And that's not a whine or a complaint. That's just a fact. Oh, that's so sad. It's common. It's common for a lot of people that are strong for other people. Because the second they show any weakness shared with those that they're trying to help in their weakness, well, somehow that degrades or bastardizes the strength that they've given. It doesn't.
Mm.
Our king was the strongest human being that ever lived. And it wasn't just on the night, that he was betrayed, that he said, if there's any way for me not to drink this cup, yeah, let me out. But nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. It wasn't just that night. In the Old Testament, it says over and over again in various ways and various prophets saying it different ways. He was a man acquainted with sorrows,
Mm.
grief, and anguish. Well, why? Well, it was other people's anguish and sorrow. No, it was his own. He got so damn frustrated sometimes when they came down off the mountain of transfiguration, okay? Him, James, John, and Peter. And he was up there and he was transformed, transfigured is the biblical word for it. And his clothes were as gleaming white, and nobody could wash them that white, blah, 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 blah. And his countenance changed. You're getting a glimpse of what he was actually like heavenward. See, we in the 20th and 21st century, we got no problem seeing him as the almighty Son of God. We got a real big problem seeing him with a calloused hand, rough hewn, backwoods hickey carpenter, because that's what Galilee was. That was southern Mississippi when it comes to Jew land. All right? That was Five Tooth, Arkansas. He was a hick. And no, 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 no. That had stinky feet and smelly armpits. No, 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 that's not my Jesus. Yeah, yeah. Because he's called Jesus of Nazareth a lot more than he's called anything else for a lot. But in the first century, they had no problem seeing him with, ain't that Mary's kid? The one we're not real sure who is daddy, again, okay, we won't go there, but blah, 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 blah. They had no problem seeing a Jewish carpenter. It was when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the gate. I am the good shepherd. No man cometh to the Father but by me. How dare you? You're just a dadgum hick from the sticks. We know your mama, your daddy, your brothers, and your sisters. They had no problem with the human Jesus. They had a big problem with the eternal, all-powerful Savior Jesus. He's both, all rolled into one. And the human side of him got mad, got ticked. When it came down off the Mount of Transfiguration after talking to Moses and Elijah, you remember now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, that's a pretty high moment. It's also a very short period of time before he is betrayed, whipped almost to death, spit on, slapped, his beard pulled out, lied about, stripped, murdered. So he's just come off this high moment. They come down the mountain, and the very first thing they see is the rest of his disciples down at the bottom of the mountain. All right, right. People settle down. Settle. Let's not get in too big a fight. Wow, how come you can't heal my son? Wow, remember what awaited
Yeah.
him down there? It was the man whose son was overcome by that spirit, that evil spirit, and it would throw him in the fire, throw him in the water, and try to kill him. And he brought him to the disciples who were stuck down at the foot of the mountain and said, well, we heard, I heard that you guys can do, some of the things he can do. So heal my son. And they pulled out their best oil anointing, blah, blah, blah stuff, and it didn't work. So there's a mess. There's a fuss going on. And they all loving, all gentle, all tender, all kind, all healing Jesus. Read what he says. First words out of his mouth. How long am I going to put up with you people? How long am I going to have to stay and put up with this? What? What? Yeah. Our Savior got frustrated. Well, 5 days ago, I was bad. And I haven't forgotten your original thing about taking your own life and it being shameful. Is it? Yeah. But that doesn't stop anybody from doing it. That just shames them into doing it in the darkest, most secret corner they can find. I spent a lot of years working with people that were dealing with that. I've spent a few nights and days dealing with it myself. And what I've learned is that most people that actually get to the point of, I got to turn this thing back on. You give it the okay sign, it comes back on. Isn't that cool? They're tired. They're worn out. They have given their all, and they've given their all, and they've given their all. And the best that they sense anyway, is, yeah, so you gave your all. Big deal. That hurts. That hurts bad.
Mhm.
And most of the people that are brought to that point, whether they go through with it or not, it's not a, oh my God, I can't live anymore. She broke up with me, whatever. That happens once. But it's mainly the people that are like, I'm tired. I don't want to go through this again. So the reason that he says the two greatest commandments in the entirety of God's word are this: love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. I can do that. That's cool. Yeah, I can do that. Not so fast. And love your neighbor as yourself. And I find myself being like that Pharisee way too many times. Okay, I agree in principle, but let's go a little further. Just exactly who's my neighbor? Because it's easier with some than it is with others.
Mhm.
He said, okay, you want to go there? And he picked the most hated, the most reviled entity that they had. And it wasn't the Romans, it wasn't the Greeks, it was the Samaritans. They hated them with a passion. And he tells the story about the Good Samaritan. See, it wasn't a Samaritan that was done good by a Jewish person. It was a Jewish person that was done good by a Samaritan. Oh, that was fingernails on a chalkboard to them people. It was his way of saying, you want to know who your neighbor is? It's the people that you really don't care,
Mhm.
because you've had a lot of times in your life you weren't that caring either. Talking about myself. And
Same.
he still lived, and he still died, and he still rose for me. Here's the thing: people talk about, yes, it's amazing that he died and rose again. What amazes me is that when he rose again, he didn't say, all right, I'm sick of you guys. I really thought you'd learn by now and just wipe us all out. But he didn't.
Mm.
And he has for 2,000 years. Why not? Well, the Bible puts it this way: for God is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. I'm just glad I was included, even when I have days like I did 5 days. Oh, that brings me to another thing. when we beg God to help us, when we beg God with all of our heart to do a right thing, a good thing, how long is it supposed to take before it happens?
Yeah, I don't know.
You ever thought about that?
A
Sure
little
you
bit.
have. Mad at God for not answering your prayers quick enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everybody does.
Yeah.
You promised. You said you would. Yeah, I did. And at the right moment, I will. I hate that. Not when it happens, but all the time in between waiting.
Hmm.
Next, or last, or whatever you want it to be.
Ooh, good question.
You never asked me about what books on leadership.
Oh, we should go into
What
that.
you?
Sorry. I'm still figuring out this whole interviewing thing. Um, yeah, we
Does that
should.
make sense what I just said, though?
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Now, here's another thing. I, some people think, well, I can save someone from suicide by telling them how shameful it is. And I'm not talking about you, Tom.
Hmm.
Not at all. But I've heard that crap before.
Mm,
And again, it just made me want to go to the darkest, deepest corner and do it out of their sight. All right.
yeah.
Do I think about killing myself very often? No. I'm a good looking man. Okay. I am bright, witty, intelligent. At least I'm full of myself. But by God's grace, no, I don't. But those demons do still come around. So what do you do about it? 5 days ago, I wound up on the floor right here saying, I'm done. I've done all I can do. If you want me saved, not for eternity, but from this demon inside my head, you're going to have to do something because I've done it. It's get dark. And you know when I got better? 6 o'clock the next morning.
Mm.
I needed rest.
It's amazing what tired.
I didn't hear a voice saying, go to sleep and I'll fix you while you're there. None of that crap. But he gave me rest, not just sleep, rest. I didn't have the dreams I've had in my life. I didn't wake up every 2 well, I did. But my point is, I actually got rest. And at 6 o'clock the next morning, was I perfectly fine? No, I still pissed. But I had clarity of mind and I was beginning to see what I was missing, why, and to deal with it.
Mm.
How he operates.
It's amazing. Like, um, I mean, I have a couple.
How you want it to go, is it?
What's that?
This is not how you wanted this to go, is it?
No, it's been great. It reminds me a little bit. So, um, um, my nephews and niece, just being around little kids, you find that if they don't have enough food or they don't have enough sleep, everything goes
Cranky.
wrong.
Yep.
So cranky. And I just realized that I was like, you know what? I bet most of our problems still as adults would probably go away if we had enough sleep and ate enough food.
Well, you
It's like, yeah, a
go,
decent
go.
amount. But yeah, I was just thinking like the kind of like those, I don't know, like I guess what I'm saying is like those irritations that get to you. I think those things would be a lot less if you had those two things more often. But
No, I
okay.
think you're absolutely right. Now, some people make a living off of, and happy for them, the gospel of health.
Hmm.
Okay. How do you explain the people that have great, real, pure joy and they're living, well, nobody is in an iron lung anymore, but I knew a lady that spent 47 years in iron lung.
Wow.
She had more joy than I ever dreamed of. She's one of the ones that once she was in Jackson, Tennessee, and she got polio back in the 50s. That killed a lot of people, and a lot of others wound up in iron lungs. And I think she was the last human being in an iron lung. She just couldn't be out of it. And yet she had joy. She wrote children's books. She
Hmm.
she wrote poetry. all kinds of stuff. She was very powerful.
Oh,
But at any rate, to get back to that, as far as sleep and food, I travel all over the world for my work, and I love the people here in this town, and they treat me good. But everything I get around here is fried, and, you know, there's not a lot of fresh vegetables. Not that I'd eat, just yeah, that crap. If it's green, no, no, not interested. But I know that when I eat fried foods, processed foods, junk foods, and get 4 hours of sleep a night, 6 nights a week, yeah, I'm like a 3-year-old. I'm pretty cranky. So diet does come into play, and sleep and all that kind of stuff. Next,
well, we should probably talk about leadership because I haven't touched on that and you mentioned that. So,
what do you want to go with?
well, I always thought defining leadership is a good place to start because I've heard
Ah,
so many definitions of leadership, but I'm like, I'm not really sure which one to roll with. But
what's your favorite?
leadership is influence.
All right, smart ass. The interview's over. You already answered the question. We're done. That's it.
Oh, dang it. I was hoping for a little more, but
No, but you're absolutely right. Now, again, there's people that need to make a living off of it. I get that. I really do. I actually tried to make a living off of it for a while and did. But it was all out of the corporate world. It wasn't, selling millions of copies. Leadership at its core is exactly what you said. All right. 3 words. Leadership is influence. Period. Now, who's a leader?
hmm, I guess someone that can
People.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
I guess to answer your question, people that can have influence are leaders, and that can be good or bad.
Huh. Interesting way of putting it. Let's keep ourselves with the good ones.
Okay.
Who's a leader?
What was that? Sorry.
Who's a leader?
Oh,
Just dealing with the good ones. Who's a leader?
well, I think honestly, like, what's coming to mind are mentors and role models, guides.
No, no, no. You're regurgitating what we've already talked about, Tom. No, 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 no. Fresh ideas. Come up with a fresh one. You do great work, by the way. I'm just messing with
Thanks. Uh,
you. I'm comfortable in this. You're not yet, so I'm gonna mess with you.
that's fine. I need to get better at it, so
You will, and you are. You're good. You want some help?
I could use some help.
See? There you go. Remember I told you about the Covenanters
Mm-hmm.
and that little girl? The water was going up. She goes, I'm afraid. And yet she died courageously and went into the arms of Jesus. She's still a leader hundreds of years later.
Mm.
No title, not even an adult yet. Didn't run a company. No metrics or data to speak of. And she's a hell of a better leader than nearly anybody I've met. Who's a leader? Well, it was Jesus. Well, yeah, he's the son of God. That's cheating. No, hold on a minute. Give me a second. See, I do my own interviews. I got to turn that back on. I like it. There we go. Every time I hold my hand up flat, it says, okay, it's time to stop. Um, but when in John chapter 8, I think it is, and once again, all they cared about was getting him, talking about the Pharisees, scribes, all that stuff. And they brought to him, he was in the temple area, and they brought to him a woman caught in the act of adultery. Question one: how the hell did they know she was in the act of adultery?
That's what I want to know.
Because it was one of their brethren that was adulterating with her. See, those who have an agenda of destroying someone else don't care how much of what's wrong they have to be doing to make it happen. Human nature. Okay. All right. So they bring her to him. Now, don't forget that he's the Son of God, but take a look at what the Son of God did. They brought her to him. They cast her down. Whether she's got a bed sheet wrapped around her or what, I know this about evil people. They want the most theatrical impact that they can make. So was she completely naked? No, probably not. But was she ill-equipped clothing-wise for where she was, the temple area? Yeah. And while they may have been casting slight glances at her cleavage or whatever was sticking out, they were so intent on hating Jesus that he was what they were focused on. But the scores, if not hundreds of other people standing around just gawking. What were they looking at, Tom?
You're looking at
What were they looking at, Tom? Yeah. So what does Jesus do? For once, fellas, I have to agree with you. This is an egregious sin, and she should be stoned. Thank God he didn't say that. He could have waved his hand and just made them disappear. I'd have been up for that one. See, I'm so glad I'm not God.
same.
There's a lot of people wouldn't be here, including me sometimes. I'm glad he's God. What did he do? He did the most weird thing in the world, Tom. He did the most leadership appropriate thing. And the Bible says he stooped down on the ground and began to write. What? 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 And I've heard preachers talk about, and what did Jesus write? I am of the mind that Jesus probably started enumerating the biggest word they know because they only got through years. Right? The sins of these men. Okay. One, you have no clue. Two, big deal. What did he write? Irrelevant. You know what's relevant? The fact that the only thing crazier and more look worthy than a woman half naked on the temple grounds was a preacher not looking at her, not looking at them, not responding to their rageful banter, but simply stooping down on the ground, right? I want to know what he's doing, don't you? So I take my eyes off her, even just for a minute. What's he doing? I don't know. Keep looking. No, I ain't looking at her. What's he doing?
Mm.
He took the attention off this.
Wow.
Thank God for leaders like that, because I have been in their shoes too many times. Oh, you're an adulterer. No, no, but other sins that are just as filthy. And that's what he does. He takes the attention off of us. That's leadership. I want to know who's responsible for what happened here. A good leader steps forward. I'm Chip. What can I do for you? I want to know who's in charge here. It's my responsibility. I'm the one that made this call. Well, you're the one that's going to get fired. Okay. But leave my men alone. That's a leader.
Mm.
Well, that's your position. No, no, I've seen a man do it that he was just a laborer. But the superintendent wasn't there, and he wasn't going to have his fellows get fired for it. So he took the brunt.
Wow.
Now, who was the leader?
Labor.
You said it absolutely flawlessly. Leadership is influence. What can I do today to make a name for myself? No, no, no. To become a manager so I can make a difference. No, no. What can I do today to be the best in the world? What to do? Sweep the floors, taking out trash, cleaning the bathrooms, making sure that the welders have enough rod and welding screens that aren't torn up and that kind of stuff. What can I do to make a difference for those that I serve?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're fortunate enough and it happens to be the plant manager that thinks that way, you're working in one of the best places in the world.
Yeah.
And if you work with a janitor, a supply clerk, a safety guy, or just another laborer that takes care of other people that way, that's a leader. That's what we all wish to God we had around us. Well, why don't we wish to God that we were?
Well, that was a great answer.
Ha! It's the
I
best I can come up with on short notice.
Oh, that was really good. I really like that idea of the leadership is what takes the attention, so
Well,
that
you did it. I mean, in 3 words, you hammered it. Leadership is influence. What kind of influence? That kind.
Mhm.
If you make your fellows feel less oppressed because of how you treat them, not joining in the bitch fest, that's easy to do. And I'm not talking about, I don't see anything wrong around here. No, I'm not talking about, but I am talking about how you doing, morning, Charles? Shamika, how are you? This place sucks. It's kind of hot in here. You need more welding rod? You do, because that's what I deal with a lot as well. Stuff. Um, how's your uncle? How's your grandfather? Heard he went in for surgery. On a production floor in a crappy little place in South Arkansas makes a difference.
Mhm.
And word gets around. Not about you necessarily. This ain't so bad a place. What do you mean it ain't so bad a place? We don't make that much money. It stinks, it's hot, and the equipment ain't worth a damn. Yeah, but I mean, people care about you here. Well, yeah, no, that's true. And Matilda did bring chocolate chip, well, M&M cookies. They're even better. Last Thursday, and it's not so bad.
Mhm.
So who's the leader?
Yeah.
Anybody who influences for the better.
Mhm.
Period. Now, ask me the top books on leadership I've ever read.
What are your top ones?
Top one's what? The very top one, absolutely, utterly, and completely, is God's word. Oh, I know you're going to say that, your religious thing. No, it's not for religious. There's more about frustration, anger, rage, loneliness in that book than anything else. What?
Mhm.
What? Yeah, read it. You'll find
Mhm.
there's more in there about frustration, about longings that were unfulfilled and dreams that didn't come true in their lifetime than any other book. What? Yeah, read it. You'll find it. I'll help you. But there's more in there about true leadership, i.e., John chapter 8, one caught in adultery. There's more about what real leadership thinks, feels, does, and suffers to make happen than any other book.
Mhm.
Ask me about the second one. Ask me about the second one. Not mine.
Yours.
Mine is a book on leadership and mentoring at its core. Now, it's a story about a kid, but it really is. But no, ask me about my second one.
What's number two?
Kind of slow, Tom. You need to pick up the pace there, buddy. Right there.
Three Kings.
Yes, Gene
Mhm.
Edwards. Little
Mhm.
book, not very long. I discovered this book. The religious group that I was a part of. Are you sitting down there, Tom? I don't want you falling down. I was a missionary preacher for 12 years, actually 14, but the last two I was fighting to stay in it. Nobody wanted.
Mhm.
How do you know when it's time to go? I finally figured it out. But the religious organization that I served the king in the midst of thought they were the only ones going and everybody else was going to hell. You were stepping close to hell if you went in the door of one of the mothers. But you could be in business with them, make millions of dollars with them, lust after their wives and stuff. Yeah, you could do that. But anyway, I found this on a preacher's table in another church, and it was $5. And I didn't have $5 at the time because my religious organization believed that you need to be in poverty to be holy. Of course, now they could drive Cadillacs and Pontiac Cruisers and live in 500,000 pounds, but the preacher needed it. Anyway, another story for another day. And that preacher saw me, knew exactly who I was, knew the group that I was a part of. And in his gentle, tender godliness, amongst all the books, and I was looking at all of them because he was retiring, he didn't need them. He picked this one up and he goes, if I was a young guy, I was 29 at the time, been doing it full time for about a year. And I needed one book other than God's word to get me started. That's the one I'd pick. Why don't you give it a shot? And he handed it to me. And I thumbed through it a minute and I said, yeah, I'll memorize that title and I'll get one. I put it down and he goes, don't you dare give a gift back. That's not neighborly. And he smiled. So I've kept this for 35 years. Tale of Three Kings. And it's written like a play. Act 1, Act 2, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. It's the story of Saul. And then it's the story of David under Saul. And then it's a story of David dealing with Absalom. David's the constant in the whole thing. And it's about leadership. But if you notice what it says, A Tale of Three Kings, Leadership 101. No, that's not what it says. It says a study in brokenness. What are leaders? People that know what it is to be broken. That's why they have empathy and kindness and tenderness towards the broken. And without being broken, you're going to wind up being a man king Saul, throwing spears at everybody that pisses you off. I wanted to be a leader, but I wanted the power. I wanted the prestige. Now I didn't talk of it that way. I want to do great things for God because I have talents. Shut up. You get talents to everybody, you big thing. Talking to myself. And I read this book and it scared the hell out of me. Because it doesn't shirk away from the fact that you want to be like King David? You want to be a man after God's own heart? Yeah, yep, sure do. Find yourself a King Saul. Have somebody throw spears at you and don't throw them back. Have somebody chase you for years to where you're living in caves and holes in the ground and then finally living in ditches and riverbanks. After you've been anointed to be the next king, after you've been told that you're the one. Well, it ain't acting like I'm the one. For 10 years, I'm treated like the biggest piece of crap in all of Israel. Why? As Gene Edwards puts it, he used the outward King Saul to utterly obliterate the inner King Saul that may have been hiding inside of David's heart.
Wow.
Oh, no, he was a man after God's own heart. Yeah, that slept with somebody else's wife and then murdered a man better than himself to hide it. But one of the things, and I'm going to end with this, then you can do whatever you want. You mind if I read a little bit?
No, not at all.
All right. So this is midpoint in the book. You'll have to read the rest of the book for yourself. And I think you can find free online copies for you tightwads. Chapter, what is that? 18, I guess. 17. So all those years in the second grade, and I still don't know my Roman numerals. 2 generations after the reign of Saul, a young man enthusiastically enrolled himself into the ranks of Israel's army under a new king, the grandson of David. Now, Solomon's gone by now. All right. Keep in mind, this is done like a play, so it moves back and forth. He soon began hearing tales of David's mighty men of valor, And he determined to discover for himself if one of those mighty men might still be alive. And if so, to find him and talk to him. So he calculated that such a man would be over 100 years old.
Mm.
At last, he discovered that sure enough, there was such a man still alive. And having learned of his whereabouts, the youth made haste to his dwelling. Anxiously, if not hesitantly, he knocked on the door. And slowly it opened. And there stood a giant of a man, gray, no, white haired, and wrinkled beyond all expectations. Sir, are you one of David's mighty men of long ago? One of these men of whom we have heard so much? The old man surveyed the young man's face, his features, his uniform for a long moment. And then, in an ancient but firm voice, he replied, never taking his steady gaze off of the young man's face. If you're asking if I'm a former thief and cave dweller, and one who followed a sobbing, hysterical fugitive, then yeah, I guess I'm one of the mighty men of David. He straightened his shoulders for those last words. Nonetheless, his sentence ended in a chuckle. What? You make the great king sound like a weakling. Now, excuse me, wrong voice. It's the kid. Sorry. Well, you make the great king sound like a weakling. Was he not the greatest of all rulers? See, this is how we think about leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Including the ones we want to be, just to be honest. He was no weakling, said the old man. Then, sizing up the motivation for the eager young man's presence at his door, he softened his reply as he widely said, nor was he a great leader. Well, then what, good sir? For I have come a long way to learn the ways of the great king and his mighty men. What was the greatness of David? I see you have ambitions typical of youth, said the old warrior. I have a distinct notion that you dream of leading men yourself someday, huh? He paused then continued reflecting. All right, I'll tell you about the greatness of my king, but my words may surprise you. The old man's eyes filled with tears as he thought first of David and then the foolish new king only recently crowned. I will tell you of my king and his greatness. My king has never threatened me, as does yours. Your new king has begun his reign with laws and rules and regulations and fear. The clearest memory I have of David when we lived in the caves is that his was a life of submission, son. Yes, David showed me submission, not authority. He taught me not the quick cures of rules and laws, but the art of patience. That is what changed my life. Legalism is nothing but a leader's way of avoiding suffering. Rules were invented by elders so they could get to bed early. Men who harp on authority only do that to prove they have none. And kings who make speeches about submission only betray twin fears in their own hearts, that they are not certain they are really true leaders sent of God, and they live in mortal fear of the rebellion. My king spoke not of submitting to him, not once. He feared no rebellion, son, because he did not mind if he was dethroned. David taught me losing, boy, not winning, giving, not taking. He showed me that the leader, not the follower, is inconvenience. He shielded us from suffering. He didn't mete it out. He taught me that authority yields to rebellion, especially when that rebellion is nothing more dangerous than immaturity mixed with stupidity. Remember when Absalom, quote unquote, came into power, and instead of putting it down, David said, let's go, and they went off. He ran from Absalom just like he did Saul.
Mm-hmm.
Was he gutless, Tom?
No.
Huh. Maybe real leaders do things that look a little chicken sometimes, huh?
Mhm.
Da. The old man was obviously remembering some very tense and humorous episodes in the caves. No, he said, now in a voice with a touch of eloquence. The authority from God is not afraid of challengers, son. It doesn't make any defense, doesn't care one whit if it must be dethroned. That was the greatness of the true king. The old man turned then and began to walk away, both anger and regality evident in his bearing as he turned. But for some reason, he spun around and faced the youth once more, thundering one last salvo. And as far as David having authority, men who don't have it talk about it all the time, kid. Submit, submit, submit. That's all you hear. David had authority, but I don't think that fact ever occurred to him. We were 600 no goods with a leader who cried a lot. That's what we were. Or slammed. Those were the last words the young soldier heard from that old warrior. Slipping back into the night street, he wondered if he would ever again be happy serving under Rehoboam. I learned a lot about leadership from that.
I'm gonna have to get a copy.
And I tried to pass a little bit of what I learned on in my book. What do you think of all this? Huh?
That was
I've
great.
had fun. How about you?
I had a lot of fun. Yeah. Thanks for taking the time to chat today.
You get one more question if you want, or none if you don't. One
Well,
more. It really means something to you,
hmm,
whether you planned on it or not.
hmm, that's a good question.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I really did.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of like a good one to end.
No, one that's just been really gnawing at you that you're
Hmm,
not afraid to say.
let's see.
And I've had tons in my life I was afraid to say out loud. So you do, that's not a problem.
Hmm. Maybe I'll keep it for next time.
So be
It's
it.
yeah, but it was a pleasure having you on today, Chip.
It
Thank you.
has been my honor. You're a good young man. You're doing a good job.
I'll have to do it again soon. I always like it having people come back on and just chat about things. So I learned a lot today, and I'm hoping that a lot of people will as well that listen to this. So thank you.
It has been my honor. God's best and have a great week.
Same to you, Chip.
All right. Bye bye.